The Center for Social Innovation is a collaborative workspace, a community, and a launchpad for people and organizations that are working to change the world. So we are a social enterprise that starts with physical space and workspace, and then works to create, through the power of community animation, the connections and cohesion and community amongst people and organizations whose mission is to put people and planet first. So CSI started as a 5,000 square foot space and 14 organizations that came from health, environment, social justice, international development. And very quickly, over the last 11 years, we have grown to now support over 850 social mission organizations that are working on everything from farming to finance, from data to technology to policy to behavior change. And ultimately, we support over 2,000 social innovators in our 5 locations, and increasingly are moving outside of the walls and really into a movement of people who are bringing this mission of people and planet first and integrating it with their work. So the Center for Social Innovation is about hope, it's about possibility, it's about intentionality, and it's really tapping into a movement of people who are really trying to figure out how to make the world a better place. The Center for Social Innovation's growth, we started in 2004 with 5,000 square feet and an experiment. What would happen if you put 30 social innovators into one room? Would they compete? Would they collaborate? What would happen? And we found that far from compete, they were amazing. An incredible little community was born. But that community actually became stagnant quite quickly, and what happened is we had an opportunity to expand in 2007. We jumped from 21 organizations because we had started experimenting with this crazy concept called co-working, which we were certainly one of the first organizations in Canada, maybe globally, to experiment with this. We called it virtual tenancy, which was a completely lame brand, but it was that experiment around temporary workspace, transitional folks. But in 2007, we jumped to 175 organizations. We were riding this incredible wave around social entrepreneurship, bringing people in from the for-profit and the nonprofit sector, and really looking at the hybridization of this space. It was 2010 that we took on the crazy challenge of buying a building and opening up a new location. We bought the building with the power of community bonds and raised $6.8 million to purchase a new home, and is now home to over 200 incredible social mission organizations. We then opened up a third location in Regent Park, a neighborhood that's being revitalized in the city of Toronto, an amazing community which really challenged our thinking because it was really focused on animating a low-income neighborhood that was going through massive change. It was around that same time, in around 2012, 2013, that we had this crazy invitation from folks in New York City who said, would you be willing to open up a space in New York? And I have to tell you, we'd been invited to come to many, many cities to open up a space, and we'd said no to all of them, and New York was no different. They said, would you like to open a space? We said, nah, no, thank you. And they said, no. No, we think you really should. And inevitably, the tenacity of those New Yorkers, we opened up an incredible 24,000 square foot space in Chelsea, Manhattan, 2 years ago now. In fact, we celebrated our 2-year anniversary just the other day. Opening up CSI New York was a huge accomplishment. It also strained a lot of our resources. There's no question to operate in 2 cities at once, but we took a year to breathe and to reflect, and after we opened up in New York, we launched a number of new programs, a microloan program to support social entrepreneurs. We supported, did peer networking circles. We were doing all sorts of programmatic work. But one of the core things that happened to us is we realized that owning our own real estate was really quite essential to our successful business model. And what we did last fall is we bought a 64,000 square foot building in downtown Toronto that will, in 2 to 3 years' time, replace our original location, which we had been leasing with an ownership model. And What was interesting about the new building, 192 Spadina, is that once again we were able to tap into this incredible community of community investors with the community bond and have been able to raise $4.5 million just in the community bond campaign from over 220 community-based investors for investments for as little as $1,000, offering them a 4% return. And why this is so important? Why this is so important to our work as ecosystem builders is because what we learned in the community bond is, yes, we can turn social capital into financial capital and then actually buy real estate that builds community. We proved that, and it was phenomenal, and we couldn't do it without our community. But more importantly, what we did is we gave a piece of ourselves away to our community. We built a strong relationship, champions for our work through their commitment and their investment. And so what we've learned is to really play with all of the different roles. 60% of our investors are members of CSI. So what this means is that we build one relationship and they become our client, our member, our champion, our investor, and we start to build this richness and depth of relationship with the people in that ecosystem. That's what community looks like. That's what it feels like, and that's what it can do. And so I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg of understanding how an investment in these communities can be transformative in our work, in our world. We're just at the beginning. We've got so much more to do. It is absolutely chaotic being a meta entrepreneur. If you're seeking order, ecosystems are not the place for you. In my mind, the role of the meta entrepreneur is about being able to hold ambiguity, to not try to control, but rather to enable. And in many ways, I see myself as an acupuncturist. The question when you're looking at an ecosystem and you want to intervene in that ecosystem is to say to yourself, where can I make the smallest intervention that will trigger the greatest amount of impact, recognizing that you have no control, zero control over the outcomes of that intervention. And so a meta entrepreneur relies on strategy, relies on intuition, and relies on persuasion, the ability to persuade an ecosystem to move in a particular direction, to be able to get the outcomes that you want. And so when you look at that ecosystem, for me, one of the challenges is what is the galvanizing force, which is defining that intentionality. And that's where you start to see some really exciting work. The Center for Social Innovation has often been compared to an incubator. What we are, though, I think, is a hybrid of a whole bunch of different stuff that came together out of a social purpose. So what's interesting is, we've now seen a co-working movement. We're seeing incubators. We're seeing acceleration programs. And, we could be slotted into any of those. Arguably, we could be slotted into a community center or a co-location space for the not-for-profit sector. When we were formed, our mission is to catalyze, support, and inspire social innovation. Now, you'll notice the words space or workplace or acceleration or incubation show up nowhere in there. So we've adopted collaborative workspace and incubation as a business model or as a tactic, but our mission is unequivocally to foster, support, and inspire social innovation. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that our measures of success, certainly we have a bottom line and a business model that we need to defend, but it means that we bake our social mission into absolutely everything we do. One of the most important parts of our work is culture building. Culture building is about the glue that builds community. It's about bringing the power of our values and our mission together with our work, our practice, and our craft of building relationships. The comparison to us as an incubator, if it helps other people to figure out who we are, great. But quite honestly, I'm not accountable. We're not accountable to a government funder. We're not accountable to any outside kinds of folks. We are accountable to our own members, our own community. And that shifts the balance of power. It shifts what we measure. Our KPIs are much more about happiness and connection than they are about job creation and enterprise development. Now, it doesn't mean we don't care about those things. We count them, we care about them, but that's not our end goal. Remember, a job and an enterprise is a tactic. It's not the end goal. The end goal is more meaningful, engaged livelihoods. The end goal is people and organizations that are putting people and planet first. So for us, we employ whatever tactic makes sense for us to get at the social impact that we're here to meet. So technology plays a really important role as a horizontal for many, many organizations. I mean, you look at the world, technology is no longer a vertical. You're no longer a part of the tech sector. What you are is you're a part of a different sector, some sort of an impact that you're trying to have, and then technology becomes this essential horizontal for so many of the enterprises. And, for my perspective, technology is an amazing, wow, look what's happened in the last 20 years around this. And what's exciting is it has fundamentally shifted the game to enable entrepreneurship to happen in an affordable way where it's been democratized. 25 years ago, if you wanted to start a new business, you were going to be going and looking for $1 million or $2 million to build the plant. Maybe 50 years ago. But and what's happened is that in our lifetimes, we have seen that the means of production have become democratized. We can now get to market with a product or a service faster, quicker, and better than ever before. So technology is such a key enabler for initiatives across the board. Our focus at the Center for Social Innovation is not technology focused. I understand the need and the objective for us in the startup community to be able to leverage the power of technology to make those entrepreneurs and those enterprises fly. Technology still does play a vital role in the social sector. Very, very often we see startups, social startups, that are integrating technology with a social purpose. So whether that's a diabetes management app, or whether it's an infrastructure or a matchmaking service or a management system, you're seeing application after application, technology-empowered social impact projects. So whether that's data metrics around water management or you're looking at campaigning to be able to change behaviors using CRMs, it's everywhere. To call it a sector, I think doesn't recognize the power of technology. I would argue, though, that the CSI is also in a sector which has been perceived as a vertical and is now shifting to a horizontal. Because ultimately what we're seeing, just like technology, that we understand is embedded in so much of what we do, we also are starting to see that our social impact is embedded in everything we do. No matter whether you're in mining or renewables, or whether you're involved in entertainment or the financial industry, increasingly it is clear that our social environmental impact is profoundly important to every sector of our society. And we'll see amazing, creative, innovative startups emerging out of these intersections. Defining my own success, when I walk into one of our spaces and I stand at the top of the stairs and I look at the cafe and I watch the folks who I know to be our members connecting, talking, working, ideating on a whiteboard or a chalkboard, when I see people that I know didn't know each other previously working together on something. I'm overwhelmed by pride. Success is watching this incredible community change the world. I guess I am a meta-entrepreneur in the sense that my life is dedicated to changing systems. And if a meta-entrepreneur is using the power of initiative to craft new systems that make the world a better place, then you bet I'm a meta-entrepreneur.